Welcome back to Adventures with Dice. I'm Rob and I'm your host for these videos. This is the first video in a series that I'm doing as a deep dive into the rules of Old Swords Reign. Now, I've broken this into a bunch of sections like I talked about in a previous video, and in this video we're going to start talking about the general rules. This is not the first section in the book. In fact, the general rules section doesn't start until page 95. But I felt like it was important to go ahead and lay down some groundwork for how some of the stuff works in this game, as opposed to 5e or OSR games, so that when we go back and look at character creation and some of the things you can do with characters and their equipment and whatnot, makes a little more sense if you understand the general rules. Now, keep in mind, this is still very easy, still very simple to play. If you've come from 3rd edition, not so much 4th edition, 5th edition D&D, old school OSR games, it's going to be very, very familiar. And if you look at most of the OSR games out there, they're all variations of old school D&D with minor tweaks and adjustments here and there. And this is no different. Now, in this video, we're going to be looking at the general rules, and I'm going to be highlighting how they work. I'm not going to read everything to you. Again, go get the book. It's not expensive. And you can thank me later because you'll enjoy it. Most people do. But I'm going to be covering the rules for the most part as they are in here. And I'm going to try not to stray very far into anything that I change from my personal game. Like most of us who run games do. We tweak things here and there to suit our table. I have done some of that, but that will be covered in my house rules videos. This is, for all intents and purposes, this is going to be the rules as written in the game. So, the first thing we're going to look at is, let's just go ahead and get this part out of the way. The core rule to the game is the same as most D&D games. I know there's a lot of old school that play with the combat matrix or THAC0, and that works a little bit differently. But most of your modern games use roll a d20, apply modifiers, and you're trying to either beat a DC or you're trying to beat an armor class if it's combat. Same rule here. And that is the core rule that goes throughout the entire game. Now, with that being said, this game has a simplified difficulty system right here. It varies. It goes from very easy to normal to hard to very hard. And keep in mind, if you like using your own DCs and varying the DCs on everything, you can do that. It doesn't break the game. However, using this simplistic version, there's very little in this game, if anything, that can't be covered with easy, normal, hard. I've run a lot of this game in the last few months, and I have not used anything except easy, normal, hard. I haven't used very easy. I haven't even used very hard. Just easy, normal, hard. In fact, I made these cards, and I put them around the table so my players always have it in their mind when I say, okay, well, you need to make a dex roll, an easy dex roll, or a normal dex roll, or so on and so forth. They can just, okay, normal is 12. They're trying to beat a 12. It makes it kind of intuitive and a lot faster to just have that number that you know what it is. In ICRPG, you have the room target number so that everybody around the table knows what their target number is for the room, what they need to hit, and they don't have to constantly sit and ask. And that's kind of the same thing here. If you know something's normal, you know it's a 12. You just have to hit it. If it's a hard, it's a 16. You just have to hit that. This simplifies things just a little bit. It doesn't change everything in the game. It doesn't change. It doesn't break the game one way or the other. Like I said, if you like using normal DCs, you can. But this is the way it's done in this game, and I do find it to be a lot easier and a lot faster. So you have a simplified DC system. You have roll a d20, add or subtract modifiers, and try to beat whatever the simplified DC is. Easy enough, right? Barely an inconvenience. You also have advantage and disadvantage in this game. If you've come from 5th ed, you know what advantage and disadvantage is. If there is somebody out there who doesn't know, advantage, if I tell you have advantage on a roll, then you're trying to roll a d20, add modifiers, and beat a DC. But if you have advantage, you're rolling 2d20 and taking the higher. If you have disadvantage, you're rolling 2d20 and taking the lower. That's it. This game uses inspiration, and it works like it does in normal D&D. You give out inspiration when players do something cool, role-playing wise or game-wise, or really funny, or whatever your criteria for giving it out is. I give it out at the beginning of every session. I start everybody with one, so that even if you have a session where you didn't do anything cool, you still have an inspiration. And I use inspiration cards that I made that I hope this week to have scanned into a PDF and put up on my Patreon, so that you guys can download them and make your own. But I just made my own. I make a lot of my own stuff for gaming, and inspiration is one of them. There's rules for contest, which is, you're going back and forth between two characters trying to beat their roll. Passive checks is 10 plus ability modifier plus your proficiency bonus if it's applicable, and you're trying to beat a passive score. So that works the same way as it does in D&D. You have rules for group checks. You have rules for, succeeding and failing group checks. Your saves are basically like they are in 5th ed. You have a save for each stat, and if you're proficient in that stat, you get a +2 on top of the ability modifier. So if it's a dex save and you have a +2 dex, you'd be rolling a d20 +2 and trying to beat whatever the DC for, if it's normal, easy, hard, whatever. If you're proficient in that dex, then you would be rolling that +2 and another +2 for your proficiency and trying to beat that dex. Same thing. So we have time, how it works. A round is 6 seconds, which is combat. A turn is 10 minutes, which is dungeon exploration. A watch is 4 hours. And then a day is a full day. Now, we're going to get more into watches in the exploration video, wilderness exploration, because that's where watches really shine. It really breaks down what your player characters can do in those 4-hour blocks, and it's a lot more than, well, you build a camp and you sleep. You let your players take one of several actions that they can do during that time, and they gain benefits, or they can hunt, fish, forage for food, all kind of stuff. A lot of game masters, dungeon masters, referees, whatever, tend to gloss over exploration, and if that's the way you like to play, that's fine, but I would encourage you to read the wilderness exploration rules and try it in your game. If you run it the way it is in here, it gives your players a lot of opportunity to do things that they don't normally do. If you just fast track all travel between point A and point B, you miss out, I feel, on a lot of specialized things that characters can do, and opportunities for really cool storytelling. So I would suggest checking that out, but I'll do a whole video on that. Speed is, again, in word terms: slow, normal, and fast. Normal speed is 30 yards, and slow is 15 and fast is 45. And in this chart, you have it broken down what that speed represents in yards for rounds, turns, or watch in like how far you can travel in miles. You may have, even in wilderness exploration, players. I had this happen Friday night. They took the first day of their travel and they broke their watches up and they did some different stuff, gained some provisions from hunting and fishing, and then there was some combat the next day, and then after that they had like 2.5 days of travel before they got to Oaktown, which is where they were going. And I just asked them, I'm like, so for each day, do you guys have specific things you want to do, or do you want to use your provisions accordingly and just continue to travel? And at that point, they continued to travel to the next place, and it just eats up an amount of provisions per day. But we'll get into that more when I talk about provisions and gear. Your ranges in here, if you come from a lot of different games, Dark Places and Demogorgons does this, ICRPG does this. The first game that I ever played that implemented ranges was like the new Star Wars Fantasy Flight game. And I didn't like it at first. It had to grow on me. But you have close, near, far, and very far. And close is within 5 feet, near is within 30 feet, far is near to 120 feet, and then far, or very far, is beyond 120 feet. So these ranges help you, again, just use word terminology to discuss how far and to show your players how far something is away from them. This works really well. I play on gridded combat because I play with my kids on a Friday night game, and they prefer the grid. I did the whole just 3D thing and using measuring sticks and stuff, and they were like, no, we would rather have a grid. We like counting. So I ended up gridding everything out so that they could play like that. Now, it works really well for that, but it also works really well if you're using an Ultimate Dungeon terrain like Professor Dungeon Master has, or if you're using an Ultimate Dungeon board like I do. I've done videos on that. The close, near, far, very far range system works out really well. Now, if you don't like that and you're like, no, I like tactical, I like counting everything, you can do that. Again, it doesn't break the game. It's your game. Have fun with it. You know that near is 30 feet, so that's 6 squares. So anything basically within a normal movement is near. There's rules for jumping, which are same as normal. Encumbrance is something that I really like in this. When I ran the Alien RPG for the first time, I really liked the fact that encumbrance was handled in slots. So you didn't actually have weight. Items took up so many slots, and you were allowed so many slots to hold items. And you just filled that in on the character sheet. This kind of works like that in the sense that you can carry a number of items equal to your strength score, not your ability modifier, your strength score. So if you have a strength of 14, you can carry 14 items. Plus 10 if you have a backpack. So if you have a backpack, that character with 14 can now carry 24 items. And then there's rules for if you go over that, how it encumbers you, how it slows your speed down, things like that. It's very simplified, very fast, and I just really like the way it works. We have rules for the environment for falling, suffocating, vision, light, blind sight, dark vision, true sight, and they're all very simple, real quick. Couple of lines it takes care of it. You don't need 2 or 3 pages to take care of the rules for falling or suffocating or whatnot. So the last thing we're going to come to in the general rules is rest. Now, this is where a lot of people who come from 5th ed are going to potentially have a problem. 5th edition is Dungeons and Superheroes, and you can get the hell beat out of you and just have a night's rest, and the next morning you're fine like nothing happened because you have full hit points again. I've never liked that about D&D. I've always hated that. It's not realistic even a little bit, so I just don't care for it. And that's one reason I gravitated towards old school gaming, because combat is dangerous, adventuring is dangerous, and you can get hurt. And when you get hurt, it doesn't just go away because you take a nap. So rest worked differently in this. Now, keep in mind, you can do it however you want. If you like the way 5th ed does it, where you just go to sleep for the night, you wake up the next morning, you're full, that's great. You can do that. But I encourage you to try it the way it is in the game, because it does add that old school feel of danger from you getting hurt. And it also really drives home the having to keep up with provisions and your rest times and taking care of yourself and healing. It makes it all very, very important. And it was important in old school gaming because you weren't superheroes. So you have 3 types of rest in this. And we'll start at the long one and come back. So long rest, which is, I can't remember long rest in D&D I think is overnight. So a long rest, and this is a period of extended downtime of 1d4 plus 1 days. And you have to be in a safe, non-strenuous place. And you can rest and get back hit dice and get back all kinds of stuff. A short rest is your 8-hour rest. That's where you go to sleep at night. And that's how you replenish, spells per this game, and so on, and some healing. However, to compensate for that and to help with the fact that you don't have spell slingers just throwing, healing everywhere, and you can't just take a nap and feel better, you have a breather. Now, a breather works like this. After combat, I'll actually just read this part. Immediately after combat, characters can take a breather, which is a short 10-minute rest period where they bandage wounds, sip some water, and get their wits about them again. As long as the breather is uninterrupted, each character uses 1 provision, and we'll get into how that works late in another video, and they regain 1d4 plus or minus their con modifiers and hit points with a minimum of 1 hit point healed. If they have no provisions, they only heal their constitution modifier with a minimum of 1. Only 1 breather can be taken after a combat, and the damage healed during a breather can only come from the combat preceding it. Breathers cannot restore temporary hit points, and they cannot take you above your hit point maximum. So at least after every combat, even before the cleric goes to heal everybody, or after, everybody can take a breather and get a few hit points back. Now keep in mind, you don't have the massive amount of hit points you have in 5th ed. Your hit points are a lot lower in this game. So I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but getting a D4 plus your con back is generally a pretty good thing. And you can do that after every fight that you get into. So that helps supplement the healing a little bit and keep you going. But because of the way the rest work in this game, it really does drive home the need for we can only go so far, and then we got to find a safe place to rest. And that's part of the beauty of an old school game or an old school style game, is being in that danger and having to deal with that kind of danger and protect your character, because you can't just keep barreling from combat to combat to combat. You will wear down and you will die. So that's really it for the base rules. I know I talked a little bit about provisions, and I'm going to get more into that in the gear stuff with the characters. Provisions is an amazing thing in this game. I really like it because it implements a resource. It simplifies resource management, but it makes resource management very important in this game. Sorry for the noise, but that's my air conditioner, and I live in Georgia, which is 2 doors down from hell, so it's hot here. But anyway, we have plenty of other videos coming up. The next one will be on characters and character options, and we'll dig a little deeper into what you can make in this game and what all of the different feats and hindrances and things like that are. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to put them in the comments. If you'd like to support the channel, you can see my links. You can hit the Amazon link or the Patreon link. If you join the Patreon for $1 a month, you get everything I put up. That's really about all I've got for this week, and I will see you next week with character options. Until next time, my friends, good gaming and good luck.